The great news for Miami Hurricane football fans is that the U is 4-0 after their 26-7 win against the Florida Gators on Saturday night. And more good news is that they have more than established that they could pound the rock on the ground. But I've got a plea for head coach Mario Cristobal and offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson. This is QB Unfiltered, my take. Mario and Shannon Dawson, take the handcuffs off your offense.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow.
Okay guys, so in this video, instead of analyzing Carson Beck's performance against the Florida Gators on Saturday night, instead, I'm going to give you some of my overall observations on the game, and I'm going to start with this. So last week, I did a video on my analysis of Carson Beck's performance against USF, and part of the raw footage was left on the cutting room floor with editing. In that, I had a plea out to Cristobal and Shannon Dawson about taking the handcuffs off the offense. Okay, so in all 4 games this year, the Canes offense at some point in time during the game took the air out of the football and basically took the air out of everybody in Hard Rock Stadium by just slowing their offense down to a crawl and really taking the ball out of Carson Beck and his receivers' hands. And Saturday night, it got so bad against Florida that you had a team, the Gators, that came into Hard Rock waiting to have their ass kicked by the Canes. It was evident. It showed on the faces of Napier, the head coach. It showed on the players' faces. They came into that game ready to have their asses kicked. And for the opening drive, Miami's offense did just that. And then they basically took the air out of the ball and they let Florida hang around. And anytime you do that, that's a dangerous situation in any football game. So as I said, I cut this out of last week's video. One of the reasons I did that was I just didn't think a lot of people would understand the fact that Miami scored 49 points and had 575 yards of offense. And I was going to piss and moan about how they're holding their offense back by going slow and taking the air out of the ball. And so I didn't do it last week, but I feel compelled to do it after watching Saturday's game against the Gators. So the bottom line with Miami's offense, you have got some dudes on offense this year. We're going to start with a really good quarterback, Carson Beck, obviously, who I think needs to have early success in games to stay sharp and to stay upbeat. They've got 2 hammers. I used to call them hammers, 2 beastie boys in the backfield in Fletcher and Brown. I mean, these guys can bring it. They run downhill. They punish tacklers and defenders. They run with second, third, and fourth effort. Those guys are a load, and you can still get those guys the football by going up tempo and spreading it around to the other skill guys. You have 3 fast playmakers at the receiver position. That is something they did not have last year. Use those guys. And you've got a tight end in Elijah Lofton, who I don't know if he was in the doghouse or what the first 3 games, but they finally started using him in this 4th game. And he's a guy that when you want to keep your tight end in the game and on the field, you know, he can line up tight or that tight slot or regular tight end position, and he can block in the run game. But man, is that dude athletic in the passing game. And they need to get him the ball more. Plus, you got the big boys up front that make that whole offense hum. So you got the total package. Use your guys. So in my opinion, and I've been saying this for 2 years now, but especially right now, in my opinion, I think you just need to go tempo. Go tempo. And the reason you go tempo is because it gives you more snaps. And more snaps give your skill guys more opportunities to make plays. All right. Your defense is stout. You're not going to leave them hanging out to dry by going tempo. And it puts pressure on defenses and defensive coordinators. You can still run the football going tempo. So please stop taking the air out of the ball, because when you do that, this is what it does to the Hurricanes. Now, you may be running the ball and you may be grinding clock and you may be establishing your dominance on the line of scrimmage, but you're taking Carson Beck out of the game. And I think that hurts and affects him mentally. You know, I don't think he sees himself as a game manager. And you've got a guy with some fantastic ability who was playing in the zone for the first 3 games this year that just looked a little off Saturday night. Okay, you take your big play receivers out of the game. And we talked about that last week, the ability to take the top off, throwing vertical routes, you know, throwing the ball downfield, getting the ball in their hands. You know, they've got good hands. They can go up and get the ball. They can make plays, and they've got speed. I think that these guys are going to help your offense out a hell of a lot more if you use them for more than just stock blocking. The other thing that taking the air out of the ball and slowing your offense down to a grind, it puts your defense to sleep. I mean, noticeable difference in how Miami's defense played in the first half versus how they played in the second half. Now, yeah, I'm well aware that they held the Gators to 7 points. If you go back and look at the clips of the first half, their defense was flying to the ball. And when they got there, there was a number of white hats that were laying hits on Gator ball carriers. And they were showing up with bad intentions. I mean, those were violent tackles, and a lot of dudes were in on them. In the second half, they were still making tackles and still making stops, but now you've got 1 or 2 guys at the point of attack. They just slowed down a step, in my estimation. Their intensity was sort of muted a little bit in the second half, and I believe that's all due to the fact that Miami's offense put them to sleep. Both sides of the ball give each other energy, and when the offense is out there just sloshing around and slugging it out in the trenches, the defense goes to sleep. So eventually this season, you're going to face teams that have offenses that are going to go up and down the field and score points. Your offense is going to have to be able to match scores when you run into teams and offenses like that. It's going to be hard for your skill game and your passing game to just flip the switch and be in attack mode and be in execution mode if they don't do anything for long stretches of games. And now let's talk about the balanced offense. So, you know, I've had this discussion with balanced offenses with a ton of guys over the years, and I firmly believe this, that a balanced offense does not mean equal run versus pass, 50-50 run pass. A balanced offense is equal touches for your 5 skill players. If you're able to spread it out equally amongst the 5 guys that can touch the football besides the quarterback, you are a dangerous offense. And the Canes have got 5 dudes out there that can make things happen with the ball in their hands. But you got to run more snaps and get Carson Beck involved and attack defenses in every phase of the field. Deep shots, intermediate routes, quick game, and screens. Okay, as always, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel, QB Unfiltered. I greatly appreciate the support. Okay, that was my rant. Now let's get into some observations. Number 1, the Gators quarterback, DJ Lagway, is a long ways away from being a good quarterback. He is a long ways away. At some point in time, the Gators are either going to have to fish or cut bait. They're either going to have to make a decision that they're going to go with him and they're going to live with his playing and his performance, or they're going to put him on the shelf and give another guy a shot. But for as long as I've watched him play, I keep hearing the announcers that do these games on TV saying the same stuff. You know, he's got tremendous potential. If he can just stay healthy, you know, he misses a bunch of snaps and practices and games and all this and that. If he can just get some consistent reps, he's got great potential. Yeah. Well, what I see from him is a guy that has got messed up feet. He's unsure of himself in the passing game, and his leadership skills and his overall demeanor, body language, facial expressions is that of a guy walking around like he's shell-shocked and defeated. And that's not good for your starting quarterback. Okay, number 2, as I said earlier, Florida showed up in this game just waiting to get their ass kicked. You know, from head coach Billy Napier to quarterback DJ Lagway to the fans in the stands, they just looked like they were already beat on the opening kickoff. As a football team, when another team, your opponent, shows up with that look and that outlook and that attitude about getting ready to get their ass kicked, you had better kick it. And kick it for 4 straight quarters. The Canes didn't do that Saturday night. Next one, questions about Carson Beck throwing a wet football. So obviously it rained pretty good during this game. I think that it did have somewhat of an effect on him. Usually if a quarterback has problems throwing a wet football, the ball comes out of his hand a little wobbly. That didn't happen with Beck. And when guys are having problems with a wet football, their passes usually go high. They sail on them. Well, Beck didn't have any problem getting the ball down. In fact, his problem was he missed low a lot. So it looked to me like he was guiding throws or aiming throws instead of cutting loose, just naturally throwing it. I don't know if that was because he was going overboard, you know, trying to combat a wet football. I'm not sure. All right, next observation. Florida's DBs. Hey, guys, if you're going to tackle running backs out in space, particularly if you're going to tackle dudes like Fletcher and Brown, if you go up high and try to tackle their shoulder pads, you are going to go on about an 8 to 10 yard Disneyland ride down the field, which happened routinely in this game. When you're tackling in the secondary, you got to tackle legs. Running backs don't go down when you're up there trying to tackle them by the shoulder pads, and that happened a lot in this game. Okay, number 6. Now, in the past 2 games, there have been an abnormally high amount of snap infractions by the offensive line for Miami. And this can be for 4 reasons, as I see it. Number 1, you got a lot of checks and chatter by the offensive linemen. You know, those guys are talking to each other. They're adjusting blocking schemes, and they're talking to each other. They're yelling out code names and all that kind of stuff. That may be one reason. Number 2, you may have checks and changes by Carson Beck out there while he's standing in the gun. He's killing plays. He's checking to another one. He's changing a protection. Okay, the third one, you could have different changes of snap counts. Okay, so I don't know if they're changing, snap counts and they've got guys with the flinches doing that, or the one that I think is happening, and that is defensive players yelling their checks, and it gets real close to simulating the Canes snap count. Now, I say that on one hand, and on the other hand, I kept waiting for Cristobal to get in the ref's ear about them simulating Miami snap count, because that is illegal. He never did that, so I'm not sure if that was happening. But one of those 4 things was going on, because you've had an abnormal amount of guys jumping, and they picked the worst time to do it. They're doing it inside the 10-yard line a lot. Can't have it. I said this last week, and I'm going to say it again. The Canes running backs, those guys are well coached, and it shows in pass protection. Fletcher, he is just such a technician on pass protection. And I always used to tell my players, my running backs with pass protection, that pass pro and even receiver stock blocks, it's a matter of want to. You got to want to do it. And that's a coached behavior. So I'll guarantee you that the running back coach for the Canes has made that a major priority with his guys, and man, does that show. They did another great job. And while we're talking about dudes that are blocking, the Canes receivers, and I didn't mention this against USF, they had some plays where those guys were stock blocking like 25, 30 yards downfield that were allowing, like Fletcher's long touchdown run. He had 2 guys that were stock blocking their ass off all the way down the field, and you just don't see that in a lot of receiving groups. So well done to the Canes running back coach and receiver coach in getting their positions to stock block and pass block. Okay, with 4 minutes to go in the first half, Shannon Dawson finally ran a punch screen, and it went for a big chunk, and that one got me kind of fired up. And then he followed it up with a little running back swing / bubble naked screen to the back, and that went for a pretty good little chunk of yardage. You got to get the ball out on the perimeter. You cannot always just mash it between the tackles. Get it to your skill guys, get it to them out in space, get it to them out in grass, and let them do something with it. And those punch screens and those little swing screens or bubbles to the back, that gets Carson Beck in rhythm, and it really helps his confidence. Completions. Okay, I got to say this. Mario Cristobal has got the greatest on-field pregame and halftime interviews that I've heard from a coach. The greatest. He has got those things scripted out in his mind with bullet points and talking points, and he's like a robot. The young lady, it's usually the young lady down there on the field, asks a question and puts the mic in Cristobal's face, and it's like, boom, boom, boom. And he's done, and she asks him another one, boom, boom, boom. She doesn't even get the question all the way out of her mouth, completing the sentence, and he is already rolling into his talking points. Really good. Well done. All right. What a horrible, horrible quick whistle they had on running back Chamar Brown in that long TD run. I mean, in a game where the Canes running backs were routinely standing the defensive pile up and taking them on these 10-yard excursions down the field before they would kill the play, they blew that thing really fast, and it shouldn't have happened. They really robbed that kid on a great effort, explosive touchdown run. That's a shame for Brown. Okay, to the Canes receivers, when you're running punch screens, when you catch the football, stay outside. Don't catch the ball and go back inside. Why? Because you got like 9 defensive guys going inside out, coming out to make the tackle on you. Don't run back into that shit. Catch the ball, stay wide, use your other receiver buddy stock block, work off of him, and get your yardage out there towards the sideline. Okay, Kirk Herbstreit. This guy, he does a good job, but he really annoys me at times, especially when he gets into his Mina Kimes and Mel Kiper theories about cover 2 and why it forces you to run the ball because it's hard to throw it against cover 2, which is just an amazing theory considering back in the good old days, the heyday of the air raid offense, when coordinators and head coaches like Mike Leach and Hal Mumme and Dana Holgerson and myself and guys like that were chucking the ball all over the yard, 400 or 500 yards a game throwing. All we saw was cover 2. So save me with the cover 2 stuff, Kirk. So instead of droning on about how tough it is to throw against cover 2, how about pointing out all the ways that the Canes could have hurt the way the Gators were playing that cover 2? Now, this is semi-rant number 2. Last week, I praised Shannon Dawson for finally attacking press cornerbacks with no safety help over the top by throwing the ball deep on verticals with guys that have the speed to beat corners and make plays. How many of those shots did we see against the Gators? 0. But the one that really got me was when Florida was sitting in their cover 2 in the second half and doing this with their safeties. Their safeties were lined up near or on the hash mark, about 10 yards deep. On the snap of the ball, they weren't getting depth. They weren't getting over the top and helping out those corners with the outside receivers. They were flat-footing it right at 10 yards and looking for things in front of them. And in a lot of cases on the snap of the ball, they started working downhill to help in the run game. Okay, so what you got in a cover 2 shell pre-snap look on the snap of the ball was basically cover 0 with press corners. Take shots. All right. Take shots. Now, here's the beauty with throwing the ball deep, in my opinion. Not only are you going to make big plays, if you don't complete those deep balls, you're going to scare the shit out of the defensive coordinator and you're going to loosen him up coverage wise, which helps your passing game out tremendously. So this is the point I want to make on this. In the second half of this game Saturday, Gators forced the Canes to play their offense in a box. So it was those safeties at 10 yards in cover 2, and the Canes played their offense in that 10-yard box vertically. And then, they had the width of the field horizontally, although they didn't go out there very often. But the Gators basically just cut the entire field out of it and made the Canes play in that little constricted area. And that was all on the fact that Shannon Dawson didn't attack them deep with vertical throws. Okay, so at the end of the day, the Canes are 4-0 and everybody's jacked up about that. I just think that they're wasting some talent on offense. So my plea to Mario and Shannon Dawson, take the cuffs off the O and let your dudes play. Okay, guys, let me know in the comments what you think. Did I get it right or did I get it wrong? I'm sure that if there are Cane fans listening to this video, a lot of you guys are going to be going, hey, Coach, what are you pissing and moaning about? I mean, these guys are averaging this amount of points and this amount of yards per game, and I get that. Let me know what you think. This is QB Unfiltered, and remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.